everyone. So
Back again.
Yay! We're back again, and we're back with a security talk because it's that time of the day.
Awesome.
Because security has always been a fundamental concern of IT admins around the world, and now more than ever in the age of cloud computing. And luckily today we have Susantha with us on the call, and in his tool belt is the Azure Security Center. And Susantha is a Microsoft MVP since 2010, awarded for his excellence in the cloud and data center management. So that's very cool. He's also been a Microsoft certified trainer since years. So if there's anyone who can tell you anything about security, it's this guy. So we're very lucky to have him on the call with us today. And Susantha, please take it away.
Okay. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. So let me put the first of all introduction about the topic. I mentioned about how to handle hybrid cloud security problems like a ninja, but I have to say it will be tough to become a ninja overnight. But we said that in our today topic, we are going to talk about Azure Security Center, whereas most of these tasks which you need to do has been already pre-enabled. So it will be much more easier rather than becoming actual ninja to become a security ninja. Being said that, so first of all, let me give my gratitude for all the sponsors and for the community members. Without this, it will be really tough to make such a fantastic event live. So being saying thank you to them. Let me, I think already about me has been already introduced, but a few things which has been missed. I'm from a country called Sri Lanka, a small island near the India. And yes, I have been MVP for some time and then active MCT for a long time. So currently I'm working with a couple of companies as a consultant and as active trainer. Why the trainer? Just because it always going to push the boundary to learn every new things in the security area. It will be allow me to actually not to be comfortable. Always go ahead for the extra mile to learn something new. So that's something very passionate about in myself. To learn on security subject and on the Microsoft Cloud latest technology updates. So being said that, straight away going to the security side, the first thing I would advise from Microsoft side, it will be, some of you might be thinking, okay, how become Microsoft becoming a security company? Well, things might get changed very quickly, and some of the evidence has been already been very clear. Microsoft has been running data centers for a very long time, even when you go back all the way to Hotmail accounts and all the other cloud services, that's been running in their data centers. So to give such a services worldwide, you need to make sure your data centers are protected and not to lose your reputation. So that's where how the Microsoft security background started. Being said that over the time period, now we know most of the workloads are moving to the cloud. So now Microsoft tried to give that same knowledge what they had earlier, certain technologies in a scaled down mode to your on-premise, but then we can't compromise on the security. So that's why now when you onboard your workload to the Azure, they are trying to give the same security technologies they leverage internally in their data centers to protect your workloads. Being said that, what you see in the screen, the cybersecurity reference architecture, it's a very important one. I'll share the link as well to download, or if you already know that one, it's really great. Spend some time, very good quality time, or even print out this one on a large sheet. Go through this one. This is actually going to give you, just like external consultant, going to give you an idea about the security architecture approach in Microsoft, how they actually plan integrating with their own technologies and with the third-party vendors to protect your environment on the hybrid cloud environment, because my topic is more to the hybrid technology area, how to protect on-premise and then the cloud workloads. Because we are still in the era of customers are still having a hybrid model, most of data centers, not fully gone to the cloud, but we expect over the couple of years' time that will happen. So being said that, now talk about their security capability. This particular section also becoming very important. I'm not going to maintain a lot of slide decks. I really want to go for the demos. So Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph is what Microsoft capturing all their cloud-based services when they offer to the end users, that actually give them some insight and intelligence. that intelligence what they are going to leverage when they try to help you to build what we call security solutions. So these numbers are very enormous numbers. So that itself gives you an idea about how large the cloud services Microsoft offering. So even at the moment, just to play in the role of like sales talk, their data center, number of data centers combined together compare with the other competitors, still it's far ahead. So that itself actually gives you an idea where Microsoft really heading. So in that cloud services market, security always going to be the number one priority in the back end. The reason is when you give such a services, if your security services are not that good enough, then of course you are going to lose the credibility from the customers and the customers will not return. So that's one of the motivation point you can think about why Microsoft is so much focused and talk about very highly onto the security. Now, coming back to our topic area about the Azure Security Center. So I really want to spend a little bit time talking about the cloud kill chain model. To do that one, first of all, we need to understand the threats. So remember how Microsoft always approach for this section. They always talk about assume the breach has happened. What you should do now. Think about in that one. Don't think that I'm protected. Always assume breach has happened. In that same way, we try to talk about onto the cloud security model. We try to understand the exposure, where the exposure can happen, and then about the access. Who are the people going to access? What are the resources going to be accessed? And what kind of a security mechanisms can put into that place to prevent it? And then even if attacks, we all know smart attackers will never go and try to do the attack and then show their credentials and their capability to the outside world. They try to do that one in a very underhand mode. We call the lateral movement, the technical mode. So in the lateral, we need to understand in security world these lateral movements. This is where we should be able to understand and recognize these attacks in advance and then take the actions. So the actions would be actually to make sure in the final moment to prevent these such attacks will reach out to the level where it will make a disaster to your environment. So that is the whole idea. Understanding from where the attacks can happen, what are the areas, and when understanding and have visibility quickly into the lateral movements, and then taking the action. So we need to have a good understanding about this particular architecture model when we come into any security solution. So still, this is on a general section we are talking about. Now coming back to the Azure Security Center, bring it to the picture. This is becoming interesting because not all the customers really have their environment purely running on, let's say, virtual environment. Some of them can have physical environment. Some of them can have virtual machines running on Microsoft environment and third-party cloud services. And of course, most customers go close to reduce the cost by adapting PaaS workloads. So our security solution should have the capability and the visibility and the to handle all those environment across. It can be physical, it can be multi-cloud, it can be PaaS. So this is where actually Azure Security Center come to the picture by covering the both, or I would say rather than both, the plethora of environment scenarios and try to help you to protect your environment. Now, if I talk about, again, dividing that into two sections, we talk about the posture management and core. This is where we talk about the compliance and the cloud hardening when you bring the workloads. And that itself, Microsoft is not going to play the role by themselves. They happily integrate with the third-party ecosystems to provide you the maximum benefit of getting the result out of the security solutions. Because in the industry, there are third-party solutions. Mainly example like firewall services and then the vulnerability assessment tools, AV solutions. So in this situation, Microsoft is not going to play the advocate role of saying we are going to do everything. They play the role of integrating with the third-party modules as well. And then, of course, we talk about the cloud workload protections and ATP. This is where Microsoft have 3 ATP technologies actually. Now, this is interesting conversation talking about ATP. While I don't want to get into too much, but Microsoft ATP is a complete EDR solution. So just to understand, if someone comparing Microsoft Defender, it's only an antivirus solution. No, now it's as a comprehensive story of complete EDR solution of detecting and then responding for those capabilities in a very advanced mode. So by talking about in that section, so we talk about the application whitelisting and then past workload protection, which I mentioned earlier, and then something very interesting about JIT, just enough access. Just because you are the administrator on your company, that doesn't mean you should log in from that user account and do the day-to-day work. And even on the other hand, best enough, even if you have the access for that particular user account, it will be ideal if you can elevate that privilege just for a certain time period, just to do the job only, and then scale down the permission level. So that is actually simply JIT. So in this Azure Security Center, cohesively work together with the Azure Security technologies to enable JIT as well. And then finally, we talk about the IoT threat protection. In Industry 4.0 scenarios, there are a lot of sensors going to come to the picture. It's not about only virtual machines and PaaS workload. There will be a lot of sensor equipments come to the picture. So we have to think about how we're going to protect the attacks that can happen from those devices as well. So this is the high-level picture of Azure Security Center. So being said that, let me now take you to the live environment. Just to make sure that you all can hear me properly and these screens are going to work properly, I'm going to disable the video because I'm connecting from a remote location with low bandwidth. Okay, I really hope that will improve the quality of the video. So being said that, now let me take you to the Azure Portal. So inside the Azure Portal, by default, Security Center is available but not enabled by default. Only the free version is there. So if you go to the top bar and the search section and type Security Center, you will be able to find that one. So at a glance, if I go through one by one in high-level certain areas, this is going to be the dashboard. If you have the paid version, I'll talk about that one a little bit later, paid version, then you can see at a glance your security status of your Azure environment. This can be Azure and on-prem environment combined together. So here you can see at a glance about the policy and compliances, about your resources hosted on Azure. It can be multi-cloud or on-prem, the hygiene of that one. And if you have the ATP solution integrated, the threat protection. Unfortunately, in my environment, I didn't integrate that one. So coming back, if I go to the getting started, how should I start with Azure Security Center? The first place, of course, getting started. In that section, we talk about how we can enable the Azure Security Center. So initially, you can have free 30-day trial period where it will go and do the fully scanning of the environment and show whatever I show you on the demonstration on the OU section. To do that one, you have to select a data connector and then go and say upgrade to the standard version, because the free version will not go through every scenario. And from the pricing perspective, you need to get understanding. You can see on the right-hand side, the pricing section, how the pricing is going to work. So being said that, you need to install an agent for the virtual machines, basically. So if you are in the Azure environment, this agent can be automated, and all the virtual machines that you're going to set up inside the Azure Portal, agent can be automated. But if you're going to go ahead with multi-cloud management or on-prem management, of course, you can go ahead and download the agent and then set it up for the machines. Now, coming back onto my pricing and tier section, just to give you a little bit more overview. So pricing, I'm not going to go detail, but if you look at it, the free version West standard, you can see the difference. So the free version will only going to do continuous assessment and security recommendation going to be provided, and then show you the Azure Security Score. That's it. But all the other advanced features like JIT and then the adaptive application controls and network hardening, those features will be only available, and even the EDR, like threat protection for Azure virtual machine and non-Azure servers, that's only coming on the standard version. So when we pay $15 per VM, these are the things actually you are going to get. So that's about the pricing section. Data collection, this is the important area. You need to enable auto provisioning in this place, and then you have to give a workspace. So workspace is going to be, let's say, kind of like the data collection storage location. So inside this, the workspace, all the data will be collected and then analyzed and then visually demonstrated for you on the Azure Security Center. And apart from that, if you really wanted to bring the Windows Security Center events and kept them on the Azure side, you can do that one. And also you can define how much of a data or the event types you want to keep it onto the Azure side. And then after that, if I go very quickly on the other areas, email notifications, you can set it up to whom you want to get notified if there's a critical situation happen. That makes sense, assuming you don't want to keep looking into this console all the time. So when something critical happens, alert will come to the picture. And then the threat detections can be enabled. This is very interesting because there is nothing called all-in-one security solution for everything. Even in the Microsoft picture, it's the same. So today I'm talking to you about Security Center, but then there are a couple of other products Microsoft leveraging. So we have Microsoft Cloud App Security, which is going to be mainly focused on the cloud apps and their activity, which you can go and manage and then control in detail, which is a whole different topic. But the idea behind that one, because Azure Security Center is going to be a collector, it have all the information. So once you connected this, allow the other tools, Microsoft Cloud App CAPS, and then Defender ATP to connect, they can retrieve the logs, event information from this Security Center, and then combining into their consoles, just to make sure, like, provide a complete holistic picture. And one more thing I want to add for this one, apart from that, you can integrate this solution with SIEM solution as well. So Microsoft itself have their own SIEM solution now, fully cloud-born, called Azure Sentinel. So today, I think Martin Gordon is going to talk about that one. So I don't want to take that excitement part away. But the idea behind that one, Security Center have all the logs collected and the security events. Rather than Azure Sentinel try to do that one again, Azure Sentinel can connect it to the Security Center and retrieve those information, just to make sure to understand the security attack threat landscape. So being said that, if I go back onto Security Center, so we talk about these sections, and the community, something came later stage, where if you really want, there will be third-party communities, members are there, they will be actually publishing their own solution. They have created customized ones. You can go and contribute by yourself or leverage the solutions given by them. And then Microsoft have the user voice. If you find if there's one particular feature is not available, which you really desire, you can go to this user voice and raise about it and request it. And if there are other users as well who has done the user voice, you can go and vote for them. So the highest voting will actually become attention to the security team on Microsoft Security Center product managers. Then they will keep on adding that components on the next release. So being said that, now if I go back onto the policy and compliance section on security, this is very important for a lot of organizations. They want to understand, if I go back to the overview section, let me come from there. Policy and compliance, this is much more important if your organization has to comply to certain regulation bodies. Let's say it can be ISO, it can be SOC, PCI. So Microsoft Azure Security Center already covering or scanning your environment and then try to compare whether your environment is compliant to these regulations. So right now what you see is top high-level standards, compliance standard in there. But of course, there are other compliance standards also built in. If you want, you can integrate that one. Now, if I take my attention to the ISO 27001, which is a very common one we see for a lot of organizations, you can clearly see to comply in ISO 27001, what are the components missing in this particular Azure setup. So if I expand, it will give an idea about these component settings need to be configured. The good thing about it, even if a security consultant comes to a company, he will scan your environment and he's going to do the same thing. He will try to highlight these are the issues and then these are the things you need to do for the corrective plan or corrective action. So same scenario over here to a certain extent. It will highlight in detail on according to the ISO 27000. This is the issue that you have in your environment. Once you click that one, it will go into the detail level and then try to give us what is the recommendation as well. So we can take the necessary actions. That's very important. And if you really require, this one can be exported as a report as well. So just to save the time, I quickly download the report previously, but let me generate one saying, if I go to ISO and say download report. So it will quickly download the report onto a PDF environment, a PDF document. So that will actually give you a quick idea about what are the compliance settings according to ISO missing in my environment and what are the actions I need to take. So this might be really useful if you are a security administrator or even a system administrator who's responsible for the security part, just to keep this document as a compliance requirement as your documentation part, because I know a lot of companies I'm working with, they have a job to make sure these are documented and records are kept for review. So that's one thing you can do in that case. Now, for the interesting part for me, from my point of view, about the resources which we have hosted on the public or private or hybrid environment, the security status of those resources. So if I go detailedly on that part, those resources has been categorized, as you can see, into multiple sections in the resource security hygiene area for compute, networking, so on and so forth. If I click one of them, the first thing it's going to show you the overview. By aggregating all those components, it has scanned and what are the concerns it have or the security issues that you have which you need to be corrected. And when I browse, have a look at it, there are certain things, it just gives the option of quick fix. What that means is, if I click one of them, I can select that particular virtual machine which is having the issue, and then I can do the remediate button. So by doing the remediate part, actually Microsoft will take care about doing that particular required step by Microsoft side automatically. It's much more easier rather than you have to go and do certain tasks. But it is not happening, or as you can see, occurring for all the security recommendations. Only certain things, there are quick fix available. That's also very important. And then you look at the workloads. It's not only, as I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the slide text, not only the IaaS virtual machines. So we have the VMs, and then we have the VM scale sets for like some kind of e-commerce website who require spontaneous scale up and scale down model. And then we have the cloud services. Unfortunately, I don't have any cloud services to be demoed over here. And then the app services, PaaS services. So I have deployed a demo web application just to show this feature. And of course, the containers. So the containers are also not being skipped. Now you have the capability even to look inside to the containers and try to find out what are the issues inside those, and then take the remediate actions. Now, for a security engineer, what your most of the time will be spent, this is a consulting overview. So normally what happens for a lot of organizations, consultant will come, have a look at this one, give a recommendation, and then you deploy that one. But you have no idea after deployment whether you did everything correctly or not. So this is where, again, I'm trying to emphasize the advantage of Azure Security Center. This is continuously running in your environment, overlooking to see whether your dynamic environment, because the changes can happen on your IT infrastructure daily. So the security also need to be adjusted and detect those things, and then compare according to the industry rules or security threats, how is your environment. So this particular job is carried out by 24/7 by Security Center. So that's the advantage of that one. So what I'm trying to highlight, that means security is never ending job, but at the same time you need to have tools which will scan your environment continuously, not once in a month, or consultant comes every 6 months and then scan and give a report. It has to be continuous because of the dynamic environment. So Security Center actually do that particular job. And one thing which was not covered at that time, I want to take it again one by one, networking. Networking is very interesting, and I'm looking forward. There are some improvements going to happen in future by Microsoft on network troubleshooting. But again, if you can see in networking so far, I'm lucky in my demo environment, there's no major issues. But if I go to the topology, so this is going to show everything for you visually on your environment connected resources. So just to show my small environment resources, everything properly, just to build up an idea. So I only managed to create a one security alert situation that is on for one particular virtual machine. So what is that issue? Now, if you have all your virtual machines in your environment, you will be able to see all the VNets and then the particular subnets connected virtual machines, or it can be PaaS services, and the issues as well. So if I look at this particular issue, it is actually saying for my particular virtual machines, I have allowed access from externally in a direct way. So it's highlighting saying description. All network ports should be restricted on NSG associated with your VM. So if I try to open, if this is a Linux VM or Windows VM, if it's a Windows, if I open 3889 RDP protocol port directly from internet, it's going to highlight that one because it's a major vulnerability. And same goes with SSH as well for the Linux virtual machine. So you will be able to identify those issues. And then I will be able to even understand what are the traffics being allowed by the subnet from through the NSG to my particular VM. Now, as I said, interesting things going to happen in future because these things are not enough for most of the customers. So they're asking more. So you'll be able to see in future, there will be some more enhancement going to happen. When I say enhancement, I'm not supposed to talk about in detail about that on the NDA, but there are some components are scattered around in Azure environment. So the idea behind that one, bring them together, link them together onto one console. So you will be able to get the maximum benefit out of that one. So networking, I'm not going to go detailedly, but the key idea behind this one is this is adaptive network hardening. That means, as I said, it's not going to be settled down. It's always continuously keep on monitoring. And if there's any change, it's going to highlight quickly. This is a major one. Of course, you will be alerted via email based on how you configure your environment. And then we, of course, I talk about the sensors, IoT devices. So Microsoft support monitoring IoT hubs and the IoT connected resources as well. But I really don't have such a demo environment for that. Just want to highlight that. And then about the data and storage. This is very important because when you talk about the PaaS environment, you might have your certain application directly connected to the storage accounts hosted on Azure. Or better than that, you might be having SQL as a database in a PaaS model. So how can you know your SQL database is also protected onto the optimum level? So this is where again Security Center come to the picture. You just scan your environment. I really don't have any SQL databases, but it will scan the databases and tell you what are the vulnerabilities. If you open access to an entire VNet to connect it to a SQL database, that's also a security issue. You need to make sure only give the particular virtual machine or particular subnet access only to SQL database. Then it's going to highlight those issues. Now, over the time period, here I have some 2 storage accounts also connected. So far, there's no major issues on that one. I really hope it will load very quickly. So being said that, the other components, as you can see on the picture, we have Redis database, data lakes analytics, and the data lake store. Those also been over the time period been added by Microsoft because of the user demand. Because when these services are being adapted more and more by the customers, Microsoft understand the security threat level and the importance, and then they are going to bring those environments into Azure Security Center. I'm supposed to see 2 storage accounts over here, but okay, never mind. So then the next section is about the identity. Regardless, again, this is regardless of the on-prem or cloud environment. So in hybrid environment, identity is going to become very important. The reason is, from a Microsoft security point of view or the architecture point of view, we are going to evolve everything around identity. So all the access and everything will be defined based on identity. In that case, protecting the identity is becoming #1 requirement from Microsoft point of view. Just kind of bear with me. So just experiencing some live demo issues based on how I pray for the demo god. I want to double check in the backend with the team. Can everyone hear me properly?
Hello everyone, we're experiencing some technical difficulties. I think Susantha needs to try and log back in, but we'll figure that out. Do we have some fun, interstitial content, JT, that we can do? I think we can do another shout out for the Microsoft.source newsletter at least. I feel like JT is saying yes with his eyes. Those are the best moments. I was in the middle of my breakfast, but I guess I'll have to wait a bit. It is 8:30. It's an actual, normal time in the morning. Yep. It's been a wonderful ride, JT. I did. Well, it's a bit cold in here. It's like your winter of 7 degrees. It's an old industrial building, so it's kind of cold in here. So I just, popped on a jacket. But I just heard, I think, Susantha's voice. So I think we're almost good to go. That's great. Don't worry about it. This happens. It's a live event.
Okay, my screen has been reshared. Just hope it can be visible. Okay, so let me resume now. Cool. Okay, everyone. So sorry about that technical hiccup. So I was talking about the identity area and highlighting the importance of identity. The reason behind this, because from Microsoft security point of view, one of the important concept is all these certain security areas we evolve around the identity. So identity protection becomes very much important. So when it becomes on the Azure Security Center discussion, again, we go ahead and scan the Azure AD environment and the Azure subscription and try to figure it out. What are the weaknesses which has been already kept available by the Azure subscription owner. So what you see is some of these key highlights. So if you didn't enable the multi-factor authentication, if you kept too many use access to the Azure subscriptions, those will be highlighted. So you can see already I have that vulnerability. MFA should be enabled for all the user accounts, and there should be more than one owner assigned to the subscription. So basically that's called class break account. So you need to have more than one user account. One user account will be always kept without being accessed that much, which have the highest priority. And then you will be using the other regular user account with elevated privilege when you require the permission to be given to access the resources. Now, we said that, if I go back to the next section, security solutions. So this one might not appear at the moment based on the loading time of the internet connection for my subscription, but I want to highlight it's not only the Microsoft. As I said, there are third-party security solutions available in the marketplace. So Microsoft Security Center also happily integrate with them. So we have the third-party firewall solutions, web application solutions, SIEM solutions, you can actually integrate with that one. What you saw earlier, I demonstrated how the integration happened with Cloud App Security and then the Microsoft Defender ATP integrations. Now, being said that, let me do a quick demo how easy it is to integrate Azure Security Center with Azure Sentinel. So if I go to the home section and if I go to Azure Sentinel, just want to make sure that I'm not going to remove the excitement of Azure Sentinel, which is going to happen later session. But quickly, if I go to data connectors, and inside data connectors, Microsoft always working with the third-party vendors also to improve this one. Right now, we have 54 data connectors to connect data for Azure Sentinel. So if I get the security, I should be able to see the Azure Security Center. Now you can see the green mark. What this green mark means is this particular service available and I have integrated. Just to show quickly, if I click that, and if I go to the Open Connector page, it's simple as once it's loaded, connect or disconnect. Simple as that. So if you just click connect, then what will happen is automatically Azure Sentinel is going to connect backend onto the Azure Security Sentinel. Sorry, Azure Sentinel is going to connect to the Azure Security Center and then retrieve the relevant data. So Sentinel can do its part, which you can find out in the later session. But just want to show how smooth that integration is going to be like. And then apart from that, if I go back onto the advanced cloud defense, this is where we're going to talk about certain things which is going to be interesting for some of the security professionals. One is the adaptive application control. Now, basically, this is, we can think about very high level. This is called as the white label and the whitelist and the blacklist application part. So if there's any changes happen to these applications or the files, we will be able to identify that one and then revert back. And then we have the JIT just in VM access. Now, the important thing is the automation Microsoft carried out recently. So basically, in case if you have any virtual machines which JIT has not enabled, it will highlight them under the not configured section. So you can go there and select the virtual machines and configure. Just a one tip. Then it will make sure these virtual machines will be JIT enabled. That means you will not be able to connect them directly. You have to request access, get it approved, and then after that only you will be able to connect onto a predefined time period. And then we have the adaptive network hardening, which you already saw previously under the networking section. This is also, as I said, continues to keep on monitoring part, try to understand the traffic going in and out. Based on that, it will try to understand on your security parameters and highlight you if there's any abnormal activity going to happen. And then FIM, File Integrity Monitor. This is much more advanced one. If you really want to make sure there are certain files, you want to understand the integrity part or the data has been changed or the attribute has been changed, you want to detect them, then you can enable file integrity monitoring. As I said, this is much more advanced feature. If you really have to carefully evaluate on your security journey, what are the components you're going to enable initially and what are the components you are going to bring to the picture in a later stage. So based on my experience, I always recommend not to jump into everything at once. Have a proper plan, as I mentioned on the previous slide deck. And then based on that plan, we executed the scenarios one by one. So coming back in a high level, this is where actually Azure Security Center come to the picture. My recommendation or the advice is consider this one as your external consultant, always overlooking your environment to help you to understand what is going on. So based on that, there are certain things you can automate. Once you identify those repetitive tasks or repeated actions, that is where workflow automation come to the picture. So I didn't talk about that one initially because I really want to understand the components and then bring the value of the workflow automation. So once you identify certain tasks which you need to do in case something happens, you can bring workflow automation to do that one. And then one more important thing I purposely skip is the security policy. Security policy also, I always recommend carefully plan this one. Let's say within your Azure subscription, there are certain things you want to govern, and then set up policies and define these are the things I need to have or must have in my environment, and regularly scan your environment across these policies, and if there's any deviation, it highlight. Or else, better than that, we can even harden the rules saying, let's say if a virtual machine doesn't have a backup enable, we force it to have the backup enable. If the antivirus is not available, we force it to have antivirus. So any virtual machine come to my environment in this subscription, I want to make sure there are certain activities are carried out if it's not been done already. That particular activity is where actually Microsoft Security Center default policies come to the picture. So these policies are very powerful ones. If you want, you can create your own custom initiatives as well, or we call custom policies, and then apply it across your environment, or basically in Azure we call Azure policies, or into the resource group level. So I'm not going to go in detail on this particular one in the policies, but just want to highlight in the security journey, these are the components when you try to adapt the security hardening in your subscription, which you need to remember and then take action. And the other one is about the security score, which you already saw now a couple of times in the dashboard. Security score will highlight you based on the Microsoft industry practice, best practices, what are the things, security parameters you need to configure, which already you saw in the beginning as well, or I can take you to the resource security hygiene recommendations. So these are the things you need to carry out. Now, importance you need to give, have a careful look at it, this potential score increase. Now, under this section, the number of score given in this each activity is where you need to give your priority, because Microsoft evaluate and then given certain score with a meaning. That means if you don't enable MFA, because in industry there are a lot of identity-based attacks or threats are happening, so they always highly recommend make sure you enable MFA for all the user accounts, all for the key accounts. If you've done this one for all the resources, then it's fine. You're getting this particular score 18 points added. This is not just for the sake of saying 18 points, but there's a meaning, the value. Configuring these values, parameters is very important. That's what actually the meaning of this, giving these points information. Sorry, the meaning of the giving the points. So being said that, that's about it actually. More onto my security center session today for you all. The idea behind that one, which I really want to emphasize, the journey, how Microsoft really trying to help you to adapt when you come into the Azure environment or to the other public cloud environment. The reason is it's not the same as like an on-prem environment. When you come to the cloud, the technology keep on changing very frequently, and then the attack surface also keep on, I would say, improving along with how securely you secure environment. Same time the bad guys also getting improved. So this is a very dynamic environment. So in Azure, it's much more higher. So that's why you need to have the tools, or you need to have, I would say, 24/7 scanning tools covering all these points. It's very difficult to have an on-premise tool, bring it to the cloud, and expect it to get that result. So this is where actually Azure Security Center come to the picture and help you. In subsequent sessions, you will try to understand, or you'll get an idea how integrating with Microsoft Azure Sentinel and Defender ATP, and then most of all, one of my favorite tool, CAPS, we got Cloud App Security, going to get much more higher view for you to understand at a glance what is going on and what is the PC which has carried out that action, who is the user account, what time. Those information will be integrated when you go with the integration with the other tools which I mentioned about. So for most of them, the base is going to be most of the time the Azure Security Center, the logs it's going to capture. So that's going to conclude my session. would be really happy if there's any questions to be answered, if there's any such questions available. Yeah. Sure. It will be tough actually in that case, because Microsoft already kind of like hard rule certain things. But how I do with my customers, when we download these reports and then we highlight or give the what we call we accept that risk scenario. So we can highlight and say certain scenarios we have the capability Azure Security Center to bypass that one, or even we can customize that value to a different value and then bring it to our acceptable level, because I understand certain recommendations are not applicable for some customers' environment. So in that case, they can skip that one.
Maybe you can join us in the chat after the Q&A bit when we go into the break and answer some more questions. Another one I saw, and it's kind of long, so I'm going to just read it from my screen, is I want to end-to-end encryption with API management, but through something that is supported by DDoS standard SKU. Front door does not work well with VNet integrated API management instances. All input is welcome, but I think you're also very welcome to just join the live chat and continue the conversation there, because I feel like that needs a bit of a longer answer.
Yeah, because I think better send it to me separately, because I couldn't hear it properly either, and it's a long question.
Right, yeah.
So maybe I can take that one separately with that person to give in-depth one,
Awesome.
if that's the case.
Thank you. That would be wonderful if you can join us. Yeah.
Definitely, I'll join.
Great. And I think then we're up for a break before we move to the next session. What is the next session about, JT? Do you know?
I do know. That is a very good question. So our next session is actually going to be our first session on this track with two presenters, because the only thing better than one awesome presenter is two awesome presenters.
Obviously.
And it is going to be around Azure Search and Power.
Yay, thank you. And thank you, Susantha, for joining us today.